Hey, it's Adrian. Just before we get you to this episode, do me a favor and head over to pageantlaunch.com. We are starting the world's first dedicated pageant review site to make the pageant industry safe, transparent, and fair. Three things that I know it is most of the time, but it's not like that all of the time. So head over to pageantlaunch.com, enter your email address, it's completely free, and let's get you to this episode. Hello, everyone. It's Adrian from the Pageant Project, and my special guest for today is Melanie Renaud, all the way from Canada. Melanie, bonjour. How are you?
Bonjour. Hello. I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing well. Now, why don't we start with whereabouts in Canada you are? Because as I've told you, and you found out, my knowledge of geography is hopeless. So whereabouts in Canada are you coming to us from?
So I am currently in Chatham, Ontario. It is Southern Ontario. Nobody will probably know where it is if you're not from Canada or Ontario, but I'm about 3.5 hours from Toronto on a good driving day, and closer to the Michigan border than Toronto, actually. So if that helps.
I can Google it later and I can look it up. No, my knowledge of even Australian geography is hopeless. So why I asked that, I don't know. But can you tell us something about, is it Chatham? Is that how you pronounce it?
Chatham, yeah.
Can you tell us anything about it?
It's a smaller town. I mean, I grew up here. They have a lot of farms surrounding Chatham. So I actually grew up in Chatham, Kent. So I grew up in a small town called Pincourt. Which I mentioned to you is like a small French town. My family are farmers, so it kind of worked out being in this part of Ontario. Yeah.
Guys, if you have any questions, put them in the comments for Melanie and I can pass them on. Your family were farmers, so how did you get into pageantry? I guess we should get straight into that. Although you're not the first person I know who grew up on a farm and parents are farmers who then went on to do pageantry. How did you go from farming to pageantry?
I guess I grew up more of a tomboy, but I still really things. So I'd be like out in the fields and I'd be obviously like in the dirt and the mud, but then I'd also like to try my mom's shoes and obviously got into makeup and all that stuff. And so I've always had like a little bit of a tomboy in me, but if you looked at me, you're like, oh no, she's so girly. So I guess maybe just by looking at me, you wouldn't guess that I grew up on a farm, but I always had that girly side, you know, growing up with watching Disney princesses or whatnot. Pageantry didn't come to me until like later though. So that was closer to high school. When I was 16, right. I went for my first pageant. Yeah.
Right. Can you walk us through your pageant history? So where you started and obviously all the way up to today where you're in Canada Galaxy?
Of course. I randomly internet when I was 15. And I was going through a lot at the time. I mean, high school, it's a lot in itself. And I saw this ad for a pageant and I was like, interesting. I didn't even know there was pageants in Canada at the time. I thought it was more of an American thing, let alone like the whole world thing. So for me, I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I randomly applied for it, not knowing really what I was getting myself into. And the director had contacted me for a Skype interview. And so I got her and she was like, I think you're a perfect candidate for this pageant. And I had not told my parents at that time. So I was like, well, oops, I'm going to have to tell them if I'm going to do this pageant. And they were surprisingly very supportive. And they're like, I think this is something that might actually be good for you. And so that pageant was the Miss Teen Ontario World Pageant, which is now Miss Teenage Ontario, which goes to Miss Teenage Canada. So in January, the next year, I competed, was a finalist, and then went to Miss Teenage Canada, Miss Teen Canada World at the time. They changed the name. So I had Miss Team Chatham Kent World as my title, and that whole year I learned more about myself getting involved in pageantry. I met so many people, more of like a community in that sense. Like I was going to all these events and getting involved. Okay, it cut up for a second.
Yeah, I think it might be, I don't know if it's Australian internet or Canadian internet, but
Honestly,
it just dropped out for...
It could be either.
It did just drop out for a sec. So if you could just back up, you were talking about in January, and then probably take it from there.
So yeah, in January, I did the Miss Teen Ontario World pageant. I was a finalist and went on to Miss Teen Canada World, and I placed top 10. So for my first pageant experience, I was very excited, and in the top 10, like I didn't know what I was doing at first, and I just kind of way through it, and I met so many amazing people through it. I'm still friends with some of the girls that I first competed with. So, and a few of them are actually competing with me in Miss Canada next year.
Right. Okay. So you've gotten a few sort of lifelong friends from it. So that was your first one. And then which ones have you competed in since then?
In 2014, I did Canada's Perfect, and I was crowned Canada's Perfect Supermodel. And I was actually crowned by Cindy Nguyen, who is known by Cindy with an S, and she is the director for Canada Galaxy now.
Of course.
That crowning moment from her, and I got to go to World's Perfect Pageant in 2015, which was amazing. My first, I guess, international pageant experience. It was in Florida, so it wasn't too far.
Oh wow! Okay, yep.
Yeah. So it wasn't far. I've only ever been kind of on this side of the world. I've actually never been to Europe or anything. So I would love an opportunity to do that. But it was cool to see and meet so many people, and obviously I love being on stage. So that was the last time I competed before this year.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Okay. So you took a bit of a break.
I took a break. I was so busy in university. There was just, I don't know, I have so many other, and I kind of was like, I'll do a pageant when I'm done, or I'll do a pageant this year, and I just kept putting it off, and so I graduated this year virtually. So I guess I was just like, well, I was going to do a pageant, and Cindy had contacted me and was like, you should do Canada Galaxy. I think you'd be great for it. And I kind of researched the Galaxy system, and I was like, yeah, I could definitely see myself doing this. I think it's a great organization. And so I just signed up and I went for it. And obviously it's postponed until next year, but I think that was the safest thing for them to do. And it gives us more time to prepare and whatnot. So that's, I guess I did Canada virtual in September. So that was my first virtual pageant, and the first one I took in 5 years.
How has it been? I mean, you took a bit of a gap, which is not unusual. Took a bit of a gap, took a bit of a break. How was it different competing in a virtual pageant?
It was interesting. I did not know what to expect, and we got a lot of the updates kind of last minute. So at first it was a video explaining who we are, what our platform is, what we store. And maybe I mentioned a little bit about what I had been doing for the 5 years. They wanted to know since I hadn't done any pageants. So that was included in that video, and our headshots. And so from there, the judges kind of picked a top 7. And then the top 7 were interviewed, had to film our own swimwear walk, our own evening gown walk, and put it all together. I did it all that day. So
oh wow. Okay.
I was due at 5 p.m. and I started filming stuff at maybe 11 a.m. Already, So it was very last minute, but kind of fun. I mean, I went to school for journalism and communications, so like the communication side of me, I learned how to use a camera and stuff. So I was pretty fortunate. I had that equipment myself. But it was so last minute, and I was like, oh my gosh, but kind of thrilling at the same time. You're like, am I going to get it in time? Am I going to be, am I going to be?
You call it thrilling. I think I'd call it nerve wracking and adrenaline inducing. Yeah. I had this image of you strutting up and down a paddock or something, because you said you're on a farm in your evening gown or your bikini. I mean, did you do it inside, or were you outside on the farm doing it?
I was outside. I wasn't on a farm, but I was in a public place because I don't know where else I was going to do it. I guess if I had a little bit more time, I might have tried to talk to someone about maybe going on a stage or something, renting somewhere. But I was like, I'm going to go to the local park. There's a nice pavilion, and there was people walking by, and they're kind of like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm just doing a virtual pageant, nothing to see here. But I thought it was really cool, except for like the walking in a bikini in a public park was kind of weird, but looks good on video.
What was the temperature when you were walking around in the bikini?
It was a windier day. Like, it was pretty windy, but it was still fairly warm. It might have been 20.
Okay. All right. I just imagine people asking you what you're doing, and you said you're doing a virtual pageant. I would assume that would actually get them to ask more questions rather than, they'd be like, virtual pageant?
I think they were more. I think they were more like, they didn't know how to respond. They're like, okay, and then just continued walking their dogs. So
probably lucky they didn't call the police on you. I mean, there are enough crazy people out there at the moment. They might have thought that you'd lost it.
Maybe.
So that's this year. Obviously, this year has been crazy for a lot of things, not just pageants. But you did mention that you also university, that you just graduated. And I wanted to ask you about that, because I've seen through some of your work that you do a lot of work, if I'm correct, with sororities. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So just as someone coming from Australia, and I think I'm right on this, sororities are nowhere near as big a bigger deal. I don't even know if they exist, frankly, like they do in America, for example. And I get confused whenever I see because it's always like Greek letters for some reason, like Phi, Delta, Gamma, Kappa. So I have no idea what they are. So if you could start, just for myself anyway, by explaining what they are, and then also what you do with them.
Yep. So let me try to see if I can explain it the best way possible.
Please.
We've actually had a few girls that have joined my chapter, my sorority, that have been from Australia or the UK. So they knew nothing about sororities coming in, but we had them join for the small bit that they were here for their exchange. So basically, the Greek letters don't really necessarily mean anything. They just they identify with them.
Right.
You pick the Greek letters that you want to have if they're not already picked. My sorority was founded in 1902, so I had nothing to do with the letter picking.
Wow. Right, okay.
Yeah. So it was founded in 1902 at Miami University, which is in Ohio. So it is an international sorority, but there are only chapters in Canada and the States. They do have an alumni kind of virtual chapter that is in Europe somewhere, but I don't know enough about it to tell you.
Sure.
But they do have connections there as well. It's just not like collegiate for university students. So I also didn't know there were sororities in Canada, much like pageants, I guess, which makes sense. I didn't know at 16, but I definitely did not think that there were sororities in Canada. And when I started my first year, I was approached by a woman who was in charge of like the recruitment, and I got invited to go to one of their events, and I kind of learned what they were actually about, because all I knew going up to there was like House Bunny and
that's what I mean. In like the American movies, it doesn't paint them in the most positive light at times.
It doesn't. And I was there, and I was like, kind of like aspect of pageant, kind of attracted to that. And then also like their philanthropy, involvement in the community and volunteerism. And I was kind of drawn to that. And every sorority has a specific philanthropy, like a national partner that they work with, or an international partner. That I joined was partnered with the Starkey Hearing Foundation, as well as the Painted Turtle Camp. So I actually got to go on a mission trip with Starkey last year, but I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. Yeah, I joined the sorority because I loved the people. I loved what they stood for. And I kind of got to see firsthand that it wasn't exactly like the stereotypes I had seen on TV. So fast forward a little bit, I became the recruitment chair. So I started doing what that other girl was doing that found me. I found girls that I thought would be great additions to the chapter, be great Delta Zetas. I'm a Delta Zeta. And I liked that part of it too, because I got to meet people. I got to explain what it is that we do and then see them kind of grow with it too and become more involved. And it's a really good, I think it helps with like being the best person you can be as well, which I found from pageantry and sorority life that really helped build me up and helped me build others up. So then I became president the next year. Yeah, I worked my way up where I could be in a more of a position of helping the girls in the chapter, getting the word out internationally, like what we do. And I got to meet from other Delta Zeta chapters all over the States. I went to Texas, I went to Ohio. Where else? I went so many places. So I'm like, where else did I go? I traveled the States. So that's it was a lot of fun and definitely kind of fulfilling to be able to help that much on that level and learn how to, I guess, run a chapter. So from there, I was like, what do I do next? I still had a year left of school. I didn't want to run again, but another opportunity kind of fell on my lap where my international, which is out of Ohio, they wrote application for an internship, and the internship was involved with the Starkey Hearing Foundation and the philanthropy side of things. And so I signed up for it. I did the interview and I was selected out of apparently there was a lot of applicants. The sorority is pretty huge, so I don't really know how many there was exactly, but there was a lot of interviews and they cut it down, and I was one of the 5 selected. I was the only Canadian selected. So I was really proud to be in that position. And that was kind of like the next step of my Greek experience, where I got to help women from all sorts of chapters. So not just my own. I was traveling and talking to girls from like different chapters of the States. So basically all the States. My job is not good either. All of them I was helping all over the place. And also got to go on a mission trip with the Starkey Hearing Foundation to Guatemala. So that was definitely the highlight of that year. Yeah. So I got to work with the patients. I got to test their hearing aids, putting them on. We learned all of that the day prior. And we helped over 800 patients be able to hear while we were there.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So it seems like there's a lot of commonalities between pageantry and sororities, obviously, in terms of them being probably quite misunderstood by people outside of them. But they both seem to do a lot of philanthropic work. Is that fair to say?
Yep, that's very fair to say. And I think that's why, like for me, like I was very involved in both, and I'm basically like an advocate for both, because it's not what you think it would be before you see what it is yourself. Yeah, not like the TV. Yeah. I mean,
as you said, like house bunnies and like cream pies and hazing rituals. That's well, it's an American. I think it might have been an American Pie, all that stuff, and you just look at that, and go, well, I don't want anything to do with that. To be honest, that's kind of what popped into my mind, and obviously, I thought it wasn't that. So your sorority, is it called a house or is it just called a sorority?
It's just called a sorority. My chapter didn't have a house, but there are like Delta Zeta chapters all over that do have houses. We didn't live in a house together, but I think that was kind of for the best. I mean, I don't know if I would want to live with so many people.
Yeah, it can get a little crowded.
It can be a little bit crowded, yeah. But I also wish I did at the same time. I'm like, well, that could have been fun. I've seen the sorority houses in the States and I visited them, and I'm like, wow, it's really fun to live here. But Yeah, I didn't get that. I didn't get that experience, but I still got as much possible as I could get from being a sorority woman. And I also met a lot of pageant girls through my sorority as well. Yep, there was so I'm so close to the Mission Order. There's a chapter of Delta Zeta at Wayne State, and one of the women there that I was talking to that I had met, she was involved in all sorts of pageants as well. And so we had that in common too. And I found more sorority women are actually involved in pageants too. So
yeah, it makes a lot of sense because obviously there's a lot of crossover. So you're in Delta Zeta, is that right?
yes.
Okay, so the other sororities, do you see them as, is it like competition, or do you see them as kind of like pageant sisters, I guess, would see each other? So is there competition, or is it more cooperation, or is there a bit of both between the different sororities?
I'm going to say there's a bit of both during like recruitment season, but for the most part, like
Right.
I joined an NPC sorority, which is kind of like the United Nations of sororities. So kind of how it works is that they're meant to like support and work together. And so when I actually have a pageant sister that's competing with me in Galaxy, and she is a AOPI at U of T, which is in Toronto.
Right.
And that she's one of my Panhellenic sisters, as like they would say, the NPC sisters. So I think whenever I meet another sorority woman, it's like your sorority sisters, kind of like pageant sisters, but there is that kind of like during recruitment, there's a little bit of a competition, I guess.
Of course, because you can't. I'm imagining you can't be in two sororities at the same time, can you?
No, you can't.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but I mean, for like once recruitment's done, and it's nothing like crazy. It's like fun competition, kind of like we work together in recruitment, so that everybody has good events, and the girls go where they feel most comfortable. So. Like I felt very comfortable as a Delta Zeta, but someone else might feel very comfortable as like, let's say like a Phi Sigma Sigma or any other letters. So it's kind of like finding your home.
What was it about Delta? I'm getting so confused. Delta Zeta. Oh, I've never said so many Greek letters since I was doing maths and engineering. What was it about Delta Zeta that made you feel at home? I'm just asking, like, what are the differences between the sororities?
Well, for me, it was more about the girls themselves, like the girls that I met.
Yeah.
But the organization, I loved what it stood for. It was founded by 6 women in a time where women weren't really in university. And
over 100 years ago, 120 years ago.
Yeah. So sticking together, and their values just, they kind of spoke to me more. But I mean, lots of sororities have similar stories. I think for me, it was more about the women that I met. And I was really, I loved how enthusiastic they were about philanthropy too. I think for me, it was like, I want to get involved. So, but organizational wise, like lots of sororities are pretty similar in that sense. They all have really great values. They were founded upon similar principles. So you can't necessarily go wrong with where you go. It's just where you feel like you fit in most. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would mainly be the people that you were in the sorority with, which makes a lot of sense. So what's next for you in terms of sorority life? I mean, you said you've graduated, so does that mean you can't be in the sorority anymore? Are you a sorority alumni, or what happens now?
So when you graduate, you become I'm a Delta Zeta alumni, so alumna. And so I can still be involved. There's still opportunities to be involved, whether it's with a chapter. I'm actually the advisor for the vice president of philanthropy from my chapter. So I speak with her every now and then to make sure she's good with like planning events and stuff. And I also, I am part of the Detroit Alumni Panhellenic chapter. There isn't one near me. There's one in Toronto, but I'm not traveling to Toronto. So it's all virtual.
Okay.
It's all virtual anyway, so I can't cross the border anyway, but it's close enough and it's virtual. And then I also started working on a book and materials to give to women that are wanting to be leaders in their sororities, wanting to be leaders on their campus.
Ah,
So I started the Sorority Leader, which is like an Instagram. It's an Instagram account and a Facebook. But I also write blogs for NPC. They have their own blog. So it's kind of like it's still in its early stages. But I've spoken to so many women. I've interviewed them. I've put them on my page, and just telling their stories about leadership and giving them advice. I did do some like mock interviews for girls that were wanting to run for exec positions in their sororities. So I kind of work with that on the side too, just because I'm graduated and I'd love to give what I've learned from being in a sorority to other women. So I'm doing that on the side too.
How much time did this all take? I mean, obviously, I'm assuming that you could put in as little or as much time as you wanted, but for yourself, how much of a time commitment was it?
When I was active in the chapter, it kind of depends. You can do the bare minimum, or you can get really involved. And I got super involved. I went to everything. I went to everything. I spent time after me, like when I was spending time after me talking to girls, if they were like wanting to get involved more, or had something going on in their lives and they needed someone to talk to. And so I put in probably as much time as I put in on school, and I put a lot of time in school too. So I was busy 24/7, but that doesn't mean that you can't just join a sorority and just come to the things you want. You can definitely just go to meeting and hang out with your friends. But I chose to take on those positions because I loved being on the leadership side and being on the planning side and helping other girls thrive within the chapter and on campus.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's no wonder you had to take a break from pageantry.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like you had much time left for anything else. And obviously, if you're president, particularly, you want to make sure you're doing a good job because you lead by example. Well, that's fascinating to me. As I said, I didn't know anything about sororities coming into this interview other than basically what I've seen on American TV. And as I've said, it's not maybe the most glowing endorsement of sororities. That's fascinating. So that's sororities. In terms of what else you do outside, I mean, you just graduated. You're very busy with sororities. Now you're involved with pageants again after a bit of a break. Do you have time to do anything else, like hobby-wise or work-wise, career-wise?
Yeah, I still find the time, believe it or not. I am currently in digital marketing, so I work with an insurance company and a couple other clients right now, just creating content and making sure they have like a brand strategy, advertising, whatnot, which is more part of like what I went my CMF side of my major. And then I'm also a journalist. I work for the Windsor Local right now, and it's pretty flexible with everything being virtual, and there's a lot of people that are employed. So I'm able to upkeep with both. And what else am I doing? Hobbies. I like to sing. I sing. I don't dance as much anymore. I used to be a competitive dancer, so that I don't do anymore, unless it's just like dancing in my bedroom. I
won't get you to do a demonstration.
No. You don't want to see. It's not as good as it used to be. But yeah, I sing. I used to sing more in university though, when there was places to sing. So now I mostly sing in my room as well. But I write. Obviously, I'm a journalist, so I mean, I love to write, but I love to write like my own stuff too. I've been working on that book I mentioned. I'm also working on another book, and I blog. What else did I do?
You're working on 2 books at the same time. That's ambitious.
It's ambitious, but it's also taking a lot longer than, obviously, like I want to put work into it, right? So it's taking longer. What else do I do? I swear I have hobbies.
I can't remind you of your hobbies. I don't know what your hobbies. A lot of people have taken up baking during lockdown and quarantine. That's all I know.
I am not a baker. Nope, not good. I work out, if that's a hobby. I've gotten more into yoga lately, so I never used to be a yoga person, but I love how I feel afterwards. So I've tried implementing it into my daily routine.
Sure.
So I guess I'd like to try new things, but there's not a lot of new things to try right now with
We're pretty limited at the moment.
limited.
Yeah. What's the state of lockdown for you guys in Canada? And I ask this because, like, around the world, it's changing every day. So, what's your status at the moment with COVID?
So we have stages. We're in stage 3 where I am right now. So we are allowed to leave. We're allowed to go to restaurants still.
Okay.
So obviously we have to wear masks when we go out, and but other than that, it's pretty. There's stuff that we can't do, but if we're not on lockdown or anything. Parts of Ohio did go back into stage 2, so I guess we're lucky, but I don't know how long we'll stay in stage 3. I was expecting to go back into stage 2 when after Thanksgiving we had an October number again.
Right.
What happens, but we're pretty fortunate here that we can still go out and do things for the most part if we're wearing our masks. Yeah. What is it like there right now, where you are?
I've never been, put it this way, I've never been more grateful to live in Australia than I have been in 2020. It's almost back to normal. Obviously, there's the shadow of the whole thing hanging over us, so it can always start again. It's almost like a bushfire that's been put out, but it's still smoking, and that at any time, if there's one more spark, the whole thing can just burst into flames again. But Australia, New Zealand as well. So, for example, in my state, New South Wales, and Victoria, which is a state below us, is the 2 biggest states, I think have had 5 days with 0 new cases and 0 deaths, which hasn't happened, I think, for 6 months. So
wow.
I think for Australia, we're feeling pretty good. But I really feel, because I have so many friends overseas, particularly in Europe and the UK, and it's like flipped. It's the opposite, recording record numbers, and America is the same.
Yeah.
And going into winter, I think dealing with something like lockdown is easier when it's summer because it makes you feel a bit better. But when you're going into a long, dark, cold winter, I think that just makes it that much tougher. So
I think that makes me want to live in Australia.
There's plenty of room. I can tell you that everyone who comes down here doesn't want to leave, and you're Canadian, so you won't have the same issues that Americans have coming into here. But yeah, it's weird because you said stage 3, and then obviously stage 2 you said is worse, and then stage 1 I assuming would be emergency.
Like lockdown. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas other countries do it the other way, where stage 1 is like not so bad, and then you have stage 5 is the worst. So you're just hearing all these stage numbers, and you're like, which one is worse? Is stage 3 worse or stage 1 worse? It's put it this way. I'm hoping that vaccine that they've been talking about from Pfizer, that's apparently 90% effective. Let's hope it works.
Yeah, I hope so too. I honestly, I don't know how long it's gonna last. I remember when the virus first happened. I was still in school, but I was like, oh, it's gonna be like 2 weeks. That's what I was thinking. 2 weeks and then we'll be back. And that's hilarious now. I think about it. I was like, after a couple months,
You're not the only one. I remember I was doing a pageant podcast, and back then we were making jokes about Corona. And then 2 weeks later, it wasn't a joke anymore. It just exploded everywhere. I was in the UK. This was the last time I was able to travel. I was in the UK in March. And I that was just before they got it really badly and locked down. And if I had been there 2 weeks later, I probably wouldn't have gone in the first place. But also, I may have very well gotten stuck there. So, it's 2020 has changed a lot of things. Pageantry, life, I'm sure sororities as well, and work. Melanie, in terms of, I don't know if you can answer this, but in terms of a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, obviously you've got a lot of different things going on. You've got journalism, you've got your books, you've got the digital marketing, you're still involved with sororities, you've got pageantry. Is it possible to say where you'd like to see yourself in like a long term from now, like a year from now, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years?
5 years, 5 years, 10 years. I know that I really want to be a published author. I'd love to have a published book. So I'm working towards that. I'd love to be financially stable, to have my student loans paid off. Maybe even buy a house if it was a good market. I have a lot of goals, but I'm not sure how the market's going to, I can work towards them and see what it's like in 5-10 years. I'd also love to have an international title with pageantry. So
Nice.
we'll see how that goes with at least Miss Galaxy Canada. So
yeah. Well, if you do end up taking out the title, then fingers crossed I'll see you in Chicago.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm allowed. I'm not allowed to travel at the moment. Us Aussies are not allowed to travel unless we get specific, explicit governmental permission, and it's only for compassionate grounds or essential business. And
Right, yeah.
pageantry is not classified as essential business.
No. Well, hopefully we'll get back to normal by then. That it would be.
All fingers and toes crossed. Elizabeth Marnock here has said, "Hi Melanie, miss you, girl." And Regine Elena S has said, "Hi Melanie." That looks like a Galaxy sash there as well. Okay, well, Melanie, we'll move towards the close, but before we do that, is there anyone that you would like to give a shout out to or just say thanks to for supporting you along your journey? Pageantry, sorority, everything else-wise.
I mean, I'd give a shout out to my mom. She's in the next room over there, though. So, I mean, she already knows she has a shout out. I'd like to give a shout out to my sorority sisters, my Canada Galaxy sisters, the pageant women that I met when I first started out. They've been a lot of support to me. Friends, everybody that's probably watching this definitely deserves a shout out. Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of support. I've been very fortunate to have people believe in me in pageantry and other ways and other things that I've gotten involved with. So I'm very thankful for that.
Sure. I'm imagining that, again, sororities like pageantry is a really good way of networking as well. So
yeah,
you meet people from all around the world, which is normally great if you can visit them. At this stage where you can't visit anyone, it's not so great, but it'll be great again in the future. All right. Well, Melanie, let's go through the final 10 questions. It's not a speed round. You can take your time answering them. Having said that, if you want to answer them as quickly as possible for pageantry practice, then have at it. All right. So first question is, what is your favorite word?
Is my favorite word. Grateful. I like the word grateful. Do I have to answer why? I'm like, I think it makes positive of life, just being grateful. I try to practice being grateful every day. Gratitude.
Sounds good. You don't have to explain.
Okay.
Sometimes it's funny if you don't explain because people then go around wondering, like, why did she pick that? I'm like, I don't know. Question 2, what is your least favorite word?
Think of something I can say that's not not bad.
Is it a French word or is it an English word?
Oh, that's a good question too. I could probably answer one for both. Least favorite word. I don't really like the word pistachio, but I love pistachio. Does that make sense? It doesn't.
It doesn't have to make sense, though.
I know, it doesn't have to make sense. I'm like trying to think of something that's not bad to say. I'm like, oh, the word pistachio is kind of weird. I don't know.
We'll go with that. We'll go with that. Pistachios are the ones that are green, right?
Yeah, which I love them. I just think the word, I don't know. It's a hard question.
We'll go with that. Final answer, pistachio. That is a new answer to that word. I will say no one's ever answered pistachio. Question 3, in life, what gets you excited or what turns you on?
Weather, which is kind of ironic living in Canada. I like when it's sunny and warm.
Don't move to the UK. Honest to God, the people in the UK, I love them, but when it becomes 15 or 20 degrees out and there's sun, they all go to the beach in just like bikinis and stuff, and they all get sunburnt when it's 15 or 20. And then if they ever come to Australia, God forbid, like I had a friend from the UK come to Australia, and one day it was 40 degrees here, which is too hot for me. That's 100 Fahrenheit. Yeah. And I'm just hoping that, she doesn't spontaneously combust because they're not ready for that sort of heat. But yeah, Canada, well, there are worse places to be. But again, that's something that you could come to Australia for. We do our weather pretty well, I would say. Well, that was question 3. What turns you on? The question 4 is what turns you off?
Weather. Cold weather. I don't know. I love it at Christmas, and then I'm like ready for spring weather. So I guess that question could be answered for both. I don't know. I guess I could have a good day in the winter too, though. I could have a good day if I'm feeling like good.
Yep. I mean, yeah, if you're snuggling in front of a fire with like a nice glass of red wine or something, it's enjoyable. But I think on a daily basis, if you want to go out and go for a run, for example, I think snowing and raining would get tiresome pretty quickly.
Yeah.
How hot does it get where you're at? Like, what's the hottest it will get where you're at?
Not like 30. I'd say 30.
That's not too bad.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah, that sounds pretty reasonable given other things I've heard about different parts of Canada.
Yes.
Question 5. What sound or noise do you love?
I love when my cats meow. I don't know if that's weird. I'm a huge animal person, and I've got the one sleeping in here with me right now. My dog doesn't make many sounds, or else I'd say like she doesn't even bark. But
wow.
my cats have like cute meows. I just love animals.
Well, your dog is already my favorite dog if she doesn't bark, because I
No,
can't
she does
stand
not
dogs
bark.
barking. It drives me crazy. There's a dog next door, and sometimes it just starts yapping for no reason.
Oh no.
If I'm doing an interview, it's really not good to just have the yapping dog next door.
Yeah, the dog's not in here with me, but like if she was, she'd be completely quiet, so I wouldn't be worried.
That's a well-trained dog. Regine here has said, Melanie, you're doing amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Question 6. What sound or noise do you hate?
Construction. If I'm like working on something, which I usually am, I work from home, or I always have something going on. I do take time to relax, I swear, but I mean I usually have something going on.
We don't believe you.
Day and there's and I just focus. Can't focus. I'd have to say construction. I think most people would probably agree with me.
Yeah, I don't. Let's just put it this way: I've never had anyone say their favorite noise in the world is construction. So, I think that makes sense. Question 7: if you could have any one superpower, what would you pick and why?
I really want to fly. I would love to fly. It just looks fun. I don't know if I have to justify it, because I think most people would probably agree with me. Flying would be fun.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah,
I'm with you on that one. I think that's one of my recurring dreams, is that I'm able to fly.
Yeah.
And then I wake up and I'm always very, very disappointed. Question 8: what job or occupation other than your own would you most like to attempt?
Well, I would love to be an actual singer. I haven't put much work towards doing that, but I think that'd be a lot of fun. I actually moved to Toronto before I went to university for a little bit and tried the acting thing. I didn't stick to it, but I've always thought it'd be a really fun occupation too. I musical theater trained, so I didn't actually do like the film side of it, but I'm musical theater trained, so I did the musicals in high school and whatnot. So
got it. Well, what sort of songs are your favorite to sing? Like what sort of style?
Well, pop, folk, and then I do sing a lot of musical theater just because of what I mentioned, just for fun.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I'm from a small town too, so I can't say I haven't sung country music. my boyfriend absolutely hates country music, so I'm allowed to listen to that when I go to visit him.
Okay, hang on. It cut out just momentarily when you said your boyfriend, and then I didn't hear whether the next word was hates or loves. Is it hates or loves country music?
He hates country music. He hates country music. He's Romanian, so he's from like originally from Europe. He
I
moved.
don't think they have country music in Romania.
No, I don't think they do either. So it's funny. It's funny because I'm like, well, you moved to an area where a lot of country music is listened to. But
I played the violin and I've played some Romanian folk songs. I don't know
really?
what Romanian music is though, but yeah, like old school Romanian folk songs. I quite like some country music. There seems to be like two types. There's some that are more the poppy types, and
Yeah.
then there's the one that are really, really like authentic country, and you can't almost understand what they're saying because they've got that
The
twang,
twang.
that southern twang. But yeah. Anyway, what was I saying? Let's move on. Question 9. What job would you definitely not like to attempt?
I don't want to be a construction worker. That's for sure. If you can do it, thumbs up to you. I don't job.
That's fair enough. Let's go to the final question. Question 10. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
I would love for him to say that I've done everything I could have on while I was alive, that I helped make the world a better place, I guess. I am very involved with philanthropy, so I would love to hear that if I do end up there and there is a heaven.
Perfect. Okay, well, Melanie, that's about it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
It's been good fun. It's been good fun getting to know the Canadian girls. I've started interviewing a few more. I guess final question: Canadian food? Where do you stand on what's it called? Poutine. I ask it all. Yeah. Is it a thumbs up? A thumbs down?
It's a thumbs up. There was a place in Windsor where I went to school that we'd always go like late at night, and they made it very interesting. Like they put a bunch of stuff on it that, because most people think it's just fries with gravy and cheese, but there was like meat and chicken and peppers and mushrooms. Like you could literally put everything on it. It was like a pizza, and it was delicious. So there's not just one way of making poutine. There's plenty of other ways.
Okay. I've not met a poutine that I've liked so far because to me the gravy just makes the fries soggy. But
yeah. Well, maybe you could experiment with different kinds of gravies. Where do you stand on pineapple on pizza? I have a question for you. Pineapple on pizza, where do you stand?
Are you a journalist or something? Are you? You ask. Where do I stand? That's a very good question. I stand firmly in the no camp.
Firmly in the no. I love pineapple on pizza. Fun fact, it was actually born in Chatham. So that's a fun fact about Chatham, where I'm from. That's where the pineapple was put on the pizza for the first time.
So it's your fault. It's all your fault.
Yeah.
It's what. No, if you ever want to have fun as a journalist, asking those sorts of questions, it's amazing how heated some people get. The pineapple on pizza is a classic one.
Yeah.
If you ever ask people in the UK, they don't even. It's not. I'm assuming in Canada it's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Is that what you call your 3 meals?
Yeah.
Whereas for them, sometimes they call lunch dinner, and then they call dinner tea. So when they say they're having dinner, they mean lunch, like at 1 p.m. And they have certain rules, like lunch has to be cold, but dinner has to be hot. If you want to start another argument, you ask people about scones and whether they should put the jam on or the cream first, the jam or the cream on first. It's people get very emotional about food.
Wow.
I can tell you that much. You can start a real World War III about food. Oh dear. Okay. Well, I'm glad to know that I know who to blame now for the pineapple on pizza debacle. Good to know. And just to wrap up the comments. So Cindy has said, Cindy's here. Cindy has said pineapples on pizza, 100,000%. Nope. And Regine has said Cindy Withens, yes. I'm just going to say no. Nope. You can keep your pineapple. I'll keep the pizza. If you do end up being the Canada Galaxy delegate, then in Chicago, obviously, you have to try a deep dish pizza. And I promise you, they don't put pineapple on it. That's all I'm going to say.
I'll still take it.
Fair enough.
Probably
All
delicious.
right. Melanie, thank you so much for your time. I'll keep you on the line for just a sec whilst I hang up with the audience. Thank you to everyone for watching live or on the replay, especially those who submitted their questions. And we will see you next time. Hey, it's Adrian again. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to head over to pageantlaunch.com to join the launch team for our pageant review site. All you have to do is enter your email address. It's completely free. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it with your friends and follow us on all our socials. Thanks, and see you next time.